For this wall decor sconce, you're going to need 9 Dollar Tree pallets, and a staple and some wood glue are going to be the tools of the trade for this project. We're going to start out attaching just 3 at a time because this piece is going to be fairly big, so you want to do it in stages, and I'm making sure to put the wood glue all along the edges or in the seams, just like I'm doing here. Are you watching in the video? Okay. Now, once I get them to this point, we're then going to take our staple and we're going to staple them where they meet together. And we're going to do this for the whole thing, and it's a little time consuming, I'm not going to lie. And if you're wondering what the piece of wood is for, my table is one of them cheap, you know, fabric table joints from somewhere that you use for parties, and that's what I roll with. I stage it, make it look fabulous for all of you to watch me DIY on. And it's not very stable, so that piece of wood helps me make sure that the staples are getting really into the wood. Next, after we have our 3 rows, we are going to make sure they're all even, and we are going to take a popsicle stick and cut 4 nice little clean sections and then staple them where all of these meet. So this way we have one big board or backing, one big backing. Grab your wood glue, smoosh it on all in the parts. So this way there is a bond between the wood pieces and the staples. So once this dries overnight and you come back the next day, it's ready to go. And don't be afraid to put extra pieces around the sides either, because the more staples you have in here, the sturdier this will be and the longer it will last. Now that we have that all completely together, we're going to let that dry and take this beautiful wood mirror piece from an old piece of furniture that I picked up, and we're going to paint it up. And unfortunately, before I paint it up, I didn't rub 2 brain cells together and realized this is going to have some tannus going on, or some bleed through, and protect the piece before I even got started after I cleaned it. So since I didn't do that and use like a 1, 2, 3 primer spray paint, it was raining that day, so I decided to bust out my Dixie Belle's Boss. This stuff is great to use because it dries clear and you can do little spots. So if you do a piece of furniture and you notice later there's a spot or two, you can just, you know, rub a little on there or paint a little on there and let it dry, and then just paint your color right over it without having to spray or do or make a whole mess with a whole bunch of product. So I really like this for that. But oh my goodness, people, the yellowing was out of control. Look at how horrible this got. While that's drying, we're going to move on to painting our project, and we're going to use these 2 pretty colors. If you do not have Dixie Belle products, you can use apple barrel paints as well. Mix them with a little bit of chalk paint if you want that thicker consistency, because sometimes the acrylic paints do take more coats than just a chalk paint, so using a white would work fine to mix those 2 colors. I have painted hundreds of palettes, and the best way to accomplish this is a spray paint. But if you're going for a weathered look for me, I like to use watered down chalk paints, or mix the chalk paints with some acrylic paints to get desired colors. Purposefully place the paint in the sections you want, and then we're going to wet down our heavy thick white chalk paint and go over in long strokes throughout the whole piece so we don't have any harsh stops. Mostly I skip painting because it's self-explanatory. I do like to show when I'm doing specific techniques. This, however, I wanted to just show you the color variation in the yellow and the white. Bananas, right? Just so crazy that it's so different with the tannus in it. I'm kind of a napkin connoisseur. And I love this particular napkin. And since we're going vintage everyday decor in this video, I'm going to rip the napkin in spaces or places that I want to just keep certain little designs of it. And then we're going to pull it apart. A good idea would be to put a little bit of Mod Podge on your fingers to peel that sneaky layer off underneath the top of your napkin. And then we're going to just take a sponge to press down our napkin wherever we want, or in our little mirror frame. Now, if you don't have a mirror frame, you can pick up a regular frame or just skip it all together when you see the end project. You don't have to do this part if you don't want to. I just thought it was an extra nice little touch. Now we're going to take some of this beautiful trim I picked up from Home Depot, and it comes in small sections, but I get the longer ones because I'm constantly building things, and cut it down to size. I'm using my miter shears for this. Now, I do not use miter shears often because sometimes they just don't work out the way you want them to, but for trim and dowels, they work magically. I did happen to cut these frame pieces a little short on their 45-degree angle, so I had to make them even, and with doing that, I had to come in with my frame a little bit around the edges like you see here. It wasn't a huge deal. In the end project, you just don't even care because it's so stunning, but I took wood glue and hot glue, made sure to not overlap the two so it didn't cancel out the bonds. I always like to use wood glue for the immediate hold, and then wood glue or E6000, or a favorite of mine is Gorilla Glue Gel for that long lasting hold, especially when you're selling or giving people things. You just have that fuzzy inside. Know that those glues are going to hold your project together and last. Now that our little decoupage sections are all dry, we're going to just stipple on some colors here just to kind of age it a little bit. And when I do this, I like to go dark first, medium, and then come back with a color that is actually going to blend whatever you're decoupaging in with the furniture or your thrift or your decor piece, so it looks like one cohesive unit. And for this project in particular, we're going to use this color to go back over, and as you can see, it actually is the color of the little vintage design in the napkin. This is a little knob I picked up from Hobby Lobby. For whatever reason, them little stem metal pieces on there, they're always so long, and you never need them that long, and I did not feel like busting out anything to cut it down. So I'm just taking this little metal wire, and we are going to MacGyver together a little piece inside of it with some Gorilla Glue Gel to put through our little holes in our pallets so we can create this as our hanging mechanism for our beautiful sconce. And let me know what you think about this one. This project, we're going to make a wall shelf. You'll need one of these or two of these, how many ever you want to create, some twine, and a bead. Well, two beads, really. The normal style, which I've made before in the past, is to take the two pieces of twine, drill some holes, pull them through, and then attach them in the center where they meet, and then you just hang them with one little hanger. I wanted to do something different. So we're going to take twine and put on each side of our wood piece as our brackets. You're going to want to take that twine and pull it completely through the bead and then tie a knot together with the two ends. And then you can take some glue. Tacky glue would give you a better hold than some hot glue, but put a little bit of glue right where that knot is, and then push that sucker right on up to meet the knot and let it dry for a minute. Then we're just going to lay our board right on in there. You can put some more glue at the bottom. You could use a drill as well and put two holes on the side to feed this through, and then attach your bead with the knot and the glue. I really wanted mine to just kind of set on in there, and I used a little piece of transparent tape on the bottom just to ensure that the twine isn't going to move anywhere, and it's pretty stable attached to the wall. For this one, you're going to need one palette, and that's it. And really, honestly, you're going to need half of one palette. And you're going to need a house. Honestly, any house that this will fit into, but I happen to have a Dollar Tree house. And we're going to leave it just like this because I really like the colors in the back of it. So I'm just kind of leaving it like that and leaving it neutral. And I'm going to glue this half palette right onto the front. But first, we're going to take one of these sawtooth hammer and hangers, and we're going to put it right in the top. I missed. Surprisingly enough, I cannot believe that don't happen to me more, but it really doesn't. Which is one of the reasons I love them suckers so much, because they're so easy to attach to everything. I'm using some wood glue and hot glue here just to put on the edges of the palette, and they fit right in this house perfectly. So I'm just gonna rest it right here to attach this on here. Next, we're gonna bring in our drill bit, and that's just for us to get a little hole started. Don't go too far in here because we need to attach our cup hangers, and these suckers can be difficult to attach, especially for those of you that have hand grip issues or strength issues. And if that is the case, I could not find my pliers. Take a pair of needle nose pliers. This was the best I had right next to me, and I wung it. You know what I mean? But you use needle nose pliers. It'll twist them suckers on in there really good. And we're finishing this off by adding a couple little Dollar Tree transfers. And I'm putting ones that make sense if like you're going out the door, because in my mind, this is a little key holder. You know what I'm saying? So these little words kind of just make sense for me. Really love how this piece turned out. Super simple to recreate, and it looks amazing. People, the little project we're about to create with this is no stranger to the DIY community. You have seen it done at least 100 times, and we're gonna do it with this little live edge wood piece. First, we got to get rid of this twine though. Yep, this one just pulled right off. Like I said in the beginning of the video, them staples just kind of pop right out, pry them suckers on up. So we're just going to take some beads and glue them on down to create this elegant little riser. Love how rustic looking this is, and it's super simple. We're going to need one of these pallets and a piece of this decorative pine molding from Home Depot. You can pick these pieces up in little 4-foot sizes, but this one I had 8 foot and I cut it down to size. And then we're going to bring in the miter shears. I may complain about these joints a lot, but one thing these are great at is cutting molding at a 45-degree angle and making your DIYs so much easier than having to go use a miter box or, you know, a saw. Look how beautiful that is. And it took me like 2 seconds. Whenever you're creating a frame, and this is really for anything, best way for me to explain this is to measure your corner at the tip of the end and then cut your way in. That's the best way that I can explain that. So this way the ends meet right up in the tip of the corner. See how that's going on in there? And you can really apply this same process for door frames, windows, all the things. You measure the tip of the corner to the end and then work your way in. I also liked it. That's right, your girl does home projects. I know it's been a long time since I made one of those videos, but I'm handy. Okay, anyhow, back to this. Before I glue or nail this down, and really I do this with anything I'm framing, I like to kind of push the pieces together and make sure it all makes sense and trim off if I need to. I always like to overcut because you can trim it down, you can never really bring it back if you cut it off. We're going to use these 4 paint colors throughout our entire video to create our weathered look. I'm only going to show you how to do it one time on this video so I don't waste your viewing time painting constantly with everything. I have done this many times, but I use different colors depending on what look you're going for. For this, you want to make sure you're purposefully placing your different colored paints in different sections on your palette or your piece of wood, whatever you're painting. So this way you're not blending them. You don't want one color to look like it's moving into the next. You want them to have their own dominant sections. And this way they're kind of harsh and abrupt the way that they end. I guess that's the best way I can explain that. Next, you're gonna bring in the crusty bit paintbrush. Or distress, however you want. I'm gonna use this to distress my white paint. Now I'm just taking a little bit of the Waverly's white and I am dry crusty bit brushing the paint all along the palette. I did paint these off camera. I just painted our trim white, and we're going to then place them on our palette. I'm leaving a few spots open so this way I can come in and hit this up with some hot glue so we can get an immediate bond on here so I can continue carrying on with my craft. But the wood glue is going to ensure that these do not pop off later. And make sure when you're applying them that they're not overlapping so they don't cancel each other out. If you want to leave your frame and your piece alone at this point, go right ahead, but I gotta be extra sometimes and bring in the Dixie Belle's gilding wax in silver, and I'm just gonna rub that over the edge. It's gonna help these little engravings kind of pop out more with the project. And then I glued some wood flowers in the center, and that's it for this one. People, I love the idea of creating like off-centered trays, something different that you don't see all the time. This is also a wood slice from Dollar Tree. It came in a pack that I picked up over the holiday season, and this is a bit of a branch, okay? Just the branch bit. Now you're going to need to decide where you want this to go. You don't want it right in the center, okay? I decided to put mine where I thought the weight would make the most sense. And also make sure you're using a good glue, okay? Don't just use the hot glue. When I say this, because a little behind the scenes tip, I reused a lot of these pieces. I came up with way more ideas after I bought the little bit that I got, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to reuse. So I just used hot glue, and I was able to pop these pieces right apart, people. Just pop it right apart. So if you want to create these, make sure you're using your Gorilla Glue gel, your E6000, or your wood glue to make sure you have a long-lasting hold. You might be asking yourself right now, Brandi, why didn't you put the feet on first? That's a good question. Since this is not centered, obviously, right? You can see that, right? And our top is also not directly over the center. We need to make sure that we're using our feet to level out the weight. Now you can use those fat feet, or you could take a couple of these little pieces and cut them down, which is what I did. Next, we're gonna bring in the miter shears and cut these little bits up. Now, to make sure that they're about the same size, it's not going to be perfect, but this will stay because we're going to put 3 of these underneath of here. You're going to just take them and put them right next to one another, and then measure it on the miter shear, and then chomp one down on that little branch bit. Doing it like this is going to allow us to put these feet on one by one, and as we're gluing, we're going to be able to tell where the weight distribution is going to be on our wonky little tiered tray here that we're creating. For mine, I put 1 in the front and then 2 in the back, and I kept the 2 in the back fairly in the centered area. I didn't do a very big span, because if I would have put them real far at the very edge, there would have not been enough pressure to hold in the center, and it would have tipped backwards. One of my top 10 favorite things to make are wall sconces, and I thought these would make gorgeous rustic wall sconces using a little wood bit like this. However, people, the same idea could be applied by using a little knob like this, little gorgeous decorative piece, or something simple and plain like this. If you're going to use the knobs, I would recommend using a drill bit and putting a hole through and then attaching a little bolt on the back to hold your screws in place with your knob. Make sure that you're using your wood glue to attach these, and then put a clamp on them and let them set for 24 hours to dry. Remember, for crafters' sake, and I only purchased so many, I'm reusing some of these pieces. So I'm gonna pop these right off of here, but you know, I'm giving you the inspiration and letting you know the correct way to go about it to ensure really good holds and long lasting bonds. At this point, you're gonna wanna bring in the stapler and attach a hanger on the back of here. You'll need 3 of the large pallets, and we're going to want to attach them. I used the wood glue and the staples. Let this dry 24 hours, well, overnight. I let all these projects dry overnight before actually beginning on the projects, just to make sure they didn't fall apart while I was working on them. And I'm using the same paints to accomplish the same style of weathered look. Aren't you guys proud of me? I kept it pretty cohesive this video. Taking some twine and we're going to attach our hanger, because yes, we're gonna create another wall decor piece. And I'm running out of staples again. Okay. So you may think to yourself, like, Brandi, this looks a little familiar. I feel like you've done this style, and I kind of have. Do you remember the tin piece that I have? I'll pop that up here for you. Aww. I know, you guys are so nice. It's such a nice piece. Anyhow, we're taking that idea and recycling it into a bucket wall decor piece. And we're going to start off by using a piece of fabric. You can use whatever fabric. I'm using burlap here. And I stapled the bottom together. If you want to overlap it to the next side, you go right ahead. Or like the back side. I did not. I wanted mine at the bottom. So this way the bottom of mine would be tight. And we're gonna cover that up. You'll see it in a moment. And then I'm taking more of the tacky glue and staples to attach these sides to the back of our palette. Using E6000 or Gorilla Glue gel here would probably be fine. Listen, if you want to use hot glue too, you go right ahead. But for me, I just felt like this is going to have the best outcome. This is going up for sale in my vendor space, so I wanted to make sure that the piece was going to hold together. And here is our little pocket. See how it's really loose at the top and then it's kind of tight at the bottom? I just love how cute this turned out. To hide the staples at the bottom and around the sides, I'm taking some of this Dollar Tree burlap lace, applying a hefty amount of the tacky glue over top of the staple area and the sides, and then I'm just pressing this right on top of there. It's going to dry clear, so don't even sweat it. You are going to want to let this dry for at least an hour before you carry on doing anything else. And I took the sides, put a little bit of tacky glue on the sides, and then tucked in the excess fabric. This way you don't have unfinished looking ribbon sticking out the top or cut off right at the end of the top. It looks nice and finished. To add a little something extra, we're going to take the stencil I have in my collection and put a little stencil in here. Now you can leave yours however, add whatever, but I wanted to add a very blended type of stencil, so we're gonna bring out the foam brush. And then I'm just gonna nip the tip off so it's kind of flat so I can pounce it. Now I am out of pouncers, I'm out of makeup sponges, and I'm just trying to save a penny or two, so that's what I'm using. I am taking these two colors and just going to blend them on up. Like I said, I am not trying to create a stencil that really pops out. I want a blended stencil, something that you're kind of like, ooh, what is that? There's some type of decoration on there. It's not overpowering the pretty weathered look. If you want a more dominant stencil, you go for a dominant color. I am going to add a little bit of black on here just to have some edges pop out. And that's going to be it for our last project, people. And you'll need 4 of these large palettes, and we're going to need to glue them at their little nubs on the ends. So this way that as we are stapling them together, we got that extra wood glue in there to make sure that we have a tight, secure bond. And I'm going to put a couple little bits of popsicle sticks in here, just so that way we make sure those staples don't stick out. So once you have them all together, it is time to bring in the staple gun. And it's always important, people, to make sure that you're using it the proper way so we don't staple our table or anything that's not supposed to be stapled. Keep in mind that this is really thin, so when you're putting your staples in there, you either want to put it on the thick pieces or where the popsicle sticks are. I am showing you here that I did do it on the ends just to prove that it does pop through onto the other side. So just be careful and add that extra layer, or use the thicker ends of these pallets to make sure you're getting that bond there with your staple gun. Next, we're going to bring in our napkin for our decoupage. This napkin is not in any of my bundle kits on my website. It will be soon. I do have other kits available on there currently. This one will be coming in one of the kits, so don't worry. For those of you that like this napkin, I always try to sell what you see me use in the videos unless someone has given me something. When it comes to the napkins, people, when it comes to the napkins. So the easiest way I have found is to take Mod Podge, rub between my fingers, and then to peel off your sneaky layers. Napkins usually have two. If you're lucky, it's just got the one, but mostly it has two. I constantly have people in the comments bring up this little trick and hack. I actually have a decoupage, a how to decoupage video, people, where I go over different methods of how to use things. I appreciate and love all the love in the comments that I get so much, so thank you all for always having my back. Now to attach a napkin, I'm just using some Mod Podge, and we are going across the whole entire little piece of this palette, and then we're just going to fold it over and press it down with our little sponge. If I'm being completely honest, the best way to really do this is going to be the iron-on method, and honestly it is quicker for me to use my sponge method, press it down, let it dry, than to do the iron-on method. For me, that usually takes about an hour to hour and a half because I really like to let things dry with each process. But if you want to cut out all the wrinkles and all the little lumpy bumpies that this will bring your project, then the iron-on method with these palettes is hands down the best when you're decoupaging them. But if you're piecing stuff like this, do not do the iron-on method, because if you do not have that Mod Podge on there just exactly right, then it is going to stick to your wax paper that you have going on there, and we don't want that happening. Next, you're going to take a piece of sandpaper once this is completely dry, and we're going to go in between and around all the edges to get that extra napkin off. And before I have 500 comments talking about the burn method, I know about the burn method. I prefer this method. Thank you for having my back with the tips and tricks. I appreciate you. Next, I'm taking some dowels, and I'm just taking a little bit of Waverly's Antique Wax and just staining them. You do not have to do this part, or you could put these, you know, put whatever color you want on these. And then I'm just chopping them down. I could not find my gator miter shear things. They are the easiest thing to use for dowels. I am really going to organize my house at some point so all my tools accessible. But once I cut these down, there was no, you could organize them to make them look however you want. I just kind of wanted them tossed on here randomly, no real order to anything. And you can use more or less dowels if you want as well. It's really just a preference, and I'm giving you guys the idea. You know what I'm saying? You guys are picking up what I'm putting down, right? And then add whatever embellishments you want to the center. I'm just using some wood flowers here, and that's going to be it for this one. For our tumbling block wall pockets, we're going to use my favorite bonds for this, which is Type-On wood glue and hot glue. And I'm going to make sure that I am not overlapping the two so they don't cancel each other out and we have a secure hold. And to start this out, we're going to need to use 2, 3, 4, 1, 5, and then repeat the process. So we'll need 2 2s, 2 3s, 2 4s, and 1 5 to create our wall pocket. You can also create whatever type of hanger you want on this. I just ended up nailing in a little hammer tooth hanger on the back. If you want to create a string, that is fine as well. Or even if you wanted to put a stand on the back of that, this would work for this project also. But here's me kind of laying it out so you can see 2 3 4, the 1 5, and then it's going to go 4 3 2 1 all over again. You can pick up these little sticks at Hobby Lobby, Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, anywhere. These little square dowels. Cut it down to size so it is the length of your wall pocket, and then we're going to just glue this down here so this way all our pieces stay together in a row. If you want to use more tumbling blocks instead of using a wood stick like this, go right ahead. I just had this available and I felt that this would just kind of be a little bit easier than me possibly having to worry about the pieces falling apart off the back at some point. Even though I feel like my bonds are fairly good, sometimes you gotta worry, okay, sometimes. But I just put them together. You can measure the spaces that you're leaving, but I just eyeballed it. I wung it, people, I wung it, and it turned out just fine. I let this dry for 24 hours before I decided to paint it. And again, do this whatever colors you want. I'm just using like a grayish brown and I'm not even going heavy with it. And then we're going to bring in our crusty bit paintbrush to add a little bit of distressing. I just take an old beat up paintbrush that is nice and crusty and we put a little bit of paint on it and just drag it across, and it is a super easy way to get you a distressed look without any of the effort. Next, I'm taking some burlap fabric I had laying around and I'm going to cut it to size of the width of the two tumbling blocks, and then I'm just going to use some tacky glue. Yeah, that's right, I'm using some tacky glue to attach it. Use whatever glue you preferably want. I personally, when I'm doing something like this, and I do resell a lot of pieces, when I'm using fabric on a wood, tacky glue seems to hold up amazingly well versus just using like a hot glue or something to hold it down. Like it eventually pops off, but the tacky glue seems to really stay, especially if you add some staples later. You'll also want to be mindful because doing something like this, the glue also seeps through your fabric, and it doesn't seem to matter what fabric, it just seeps through. And then I'm taking these you could use little pins, thumbtacks if you have them. I have these little bit pieces. I never remember the names of these things. And I'm just cutting the back off, and then I'm going to add them down in our little corners of our pocket for a little extra something something. And I felt like this just wasn't enough. It was a little too plain for me. I needed to just kick it up a notch. So I thought, let's make us a messy bleh and put it in the corner here. So I just took a bunch of like strings and ribbons and put them together on top of each other. Found this flower that actually just happens to match, and that's going to be it for this one. As nice as this thing looks, let's check this out. This thing is really on the half. It's not painted up right. It's definitely not even with our edge measurements here. You can pop these off easily. There's a lot going on. Now, if you want to make it a little bit more high end, you could take them off, re-glue them precisely. You could take some caulk or some spackling, smoosh it on in there, even it out, wait for that to dry. We're not going to do any of that because I'm being lazy today, and I'm going to show you how to do that and still get a nice high-end finish. I'm taking some antique Waverly wax with a little bit of a wet paper towel, and we're going to just kind of give the center a little bit more of a tinted brown look, not heavy. And if you want, you can leave your beads plain or completely stain them. I just decided to take a little bit of the wax and go around them and give them a light tint. Next, make sure your piece is dry. You can do this however you want. If you like to wait it out, you do you. I am impatient, so I'm using the heat gun. Next, we're just going to take some white chalk paint and we're going to go around the edge and we're going to go around the inner part of this. That's why we needed to make sure that wax was dry, because if not, this will kind of blend together. Next, we're going to take some clay. Now, this is my favorite clay. This is what I personally like to use. And a mold. You can use whatever mold you want. I felt birdie, you know? So using this bird mold I picked up from Amazon. Now there's always a ton of questions about clay, and here's what I'll tell you. I have carpal tunnel syndrome and some other health issues. I struggle with gripping in my hands. I have used several different types of clay. This is my favorite. It is the easiest to mold around and it does not hurt my hands. And look how beautiful that comes out. I also do furniture art, and this is just my favorite to use in general, especially with wood. And mostly you're going to want to let this dry overnight. But when I do tiny projects like this, I kind of cheat the system, okay? And I use the heat gun. Don't go around spreading it, all right? It's not the best thing. Now, I do recommend using cornstarch in your molds. Don't be a rebel like me, okay? I just happen to be confident in my peeling skills. And it literally, it will stick, okay? So cornstarch. I couldn't find mine at the current moment. I redid my craft room and I think I hid it from myself. I'm just saying. At some point, I'm going to find it and be proud of myself for where I put it. Usually I don't worry too much if there's extra bits around the main mold of the clay piece. But since this one was kind of tiny, I took my clay tool and just kind of pushed in and molded around the edges. I was very gentle like. You can pick these up off Amazon. They're nothing special. And just kind of created some individuality with the sections. And remember when I told you guys that I used the heat gun and you're really not supposed to do that? It's better to just let it dry. Yeah. That happens. Once I was happy with how dry these were, I then took some white paint and painted them. Now, typically I will already take the wood glue while they are not dry and attach them to my piece. But since I had already stained this and really did not want to get any paint on the piece, I decided to wait. And here's why you want to attach them before. It is easy for them to kind of just break apart from each other in really thinly connected sections like this one, especially since it's such a detailed little mold. And even though I used a heat gun and it is mostly dry, you know, I didn't wait the full 24 hours. That's my bad. But that's why you're going to wait, okay? You're going to wait. And you could use whatever size mold you want with this idea. I was actually inspired by a piece I seen recently in one of my Browse with Brandi videos I did at Walmart. And the piece was like $18. And I was like, we can totally make this much cheaper with Dollar Tree supplies. And of course, I felt like we needed the original bird to have a little friend. Okay, so we added a little bird, an extra one, and then a little floral piece up in the corner. And then I'm going to just take some gilding wax to kind of bring out the pops in that clay. Now, you do not have to use gilding wax. If you do not have gilding wax, no worries. Use paint. Okay, you can use paint. Just dry brush it before you start getting wild. It won't seal like gilding wax, but you're going to get the overall desired effect with that as well. I really love how simple and elegant this piece turned out. Got a little bit of boho going on, a little bit of farmhouse feel. You can keep it nice and plain or add a little bit of greenery to the top for a little something extra. Down. And for these hangers, I decided to flip them so that way the bark was mostly showing opposite of each other. And of course, use whatever hangers you want. I'm going to use these for this inspiration. And I love how these turned out. But I gotta tell you, this was the point where I was like, I feel like something is missing here. After searching my soul, I figured out what was missing. We needed to decoupage this piece. So we got to get our base nice and white here. So I'm just taking some paint and giving it a nice little once over. I'm only doing one layer. This is going to help to have our napkin kind of pop out and not have a translucent look with the wood showing through our print. I'm giving the bark around the edge a little bit of a white dusting. You can skip this part if you want, but I chose to add it in here. And next we're going to get all of our sneaky layers off the napkin. To do that, I'm just tearing a corner and I'm going to just pull them off. There's several different ways to do this. One is to put a little bit of Mod Podge in between your fingers and then just kind of pull at the ends together and it will create a separation. For our medium, I'm going to be using this product right here. You guys, of course, use what works best for you. Whenever I'm decoupaging a napkin, I always say less is more, and figure out what end or where you want to start. For this napkin, I knew it wasn't going to be big enough to fit the entire piece. And I'm going to do something that I've never done on this channel before. I'm not going to blend the napkin into the background. I'm going to actually paint the napkin's background onto our wood piece. Now, I already know what you're thinking. Brandi, what if you can't paint? I have a decoupage playlist. There are a bunch of videos down there to inspire you and help you find different ways to blend napkins. And today, I just wanted to inspire you all that even if you find a small napkin, you can take the napkin's beauty and spread it to the whole piece. I tore off all the extra parts of the napkin that I did not have glued down. And now we're going to spread the wood planks in the back to the top. And you can use a ruler for this if you want. I just had this little wood stick hanging around and I'm taking a pencil and I'm just lining this up with the wood planks in the background, and I'm going to extend it to the top of our little wood plank slice live edge piece we have here. If you want, you can even overlap onto the napkin's edge just slightly. This is sped up at 2 times, if you can believe it. I was going very slow, very gingerly. And then I went right next to where the slots were and gave a little bit of shading. The bottom part I knew was going to be the most difficult because I had to create the look of wood pieces. So this was actually sitting on a table all the way to the bottom of our little wood slice we have here, our little live edge piece. I used about 3 different browns to accomplish this, a vanilla color and even a white and a black. I went back and forth with the application, and I either did a straight line or I did a tappity tap motion. As you can see, the wood pieces in the napkin, they had several different colors, and I really did try to match them as best as I could. They're still slightly off. I might go back and touch up a couple little sections. I sanded off the extra bits of the napkin on the edges, added some floral to the top, and at the end of the day, I really love how this piece turned out. For this little plant holder, we're going to need 4 of the small palettes from Dollar Tree and some paint sticks. You can pick this pack up at Home Depot. These are $1.48 and you're getting 30 of them. So that's a pretty good deal to me. I just painted this all white and I did it off camera to save y'all time. You see me paint the first project white. You guys know how to paint things. I'm sorry. I love y'all. I'm just messing with y'all. Paint it white, paint it whatever color you want, okay? To attach each one of these pieces, we're going to use wood glue and hot glue. And as you can see here, I was like, oh, this is not going to satisfy me as I'm trying to make this. So I brought in the stapler to save the day. So I put a staple or 2, you know what I mean, at the bottom to ensure that this sucker was not going anywhere. We are going to add popsicle sticks at the bottom of it too for our little base, but you know, just I feel fuzzy inside doing it like this. I have actually recreated this today for you. I have made this exact DIY almost exactly before as a fall decor piece. Today, I wanted to give you the idea to be able to use this in many different ways because this is such, I think people sleep on the palettes and I need to stop that, okay? Stop sleeping on Dollar Tree palettes. So I need to give you ideas and inspiration, and that's what I'm trying to do here with this little piece. I am going over and touching up the white. I just wanted you to see that because again, this is why I like to use my 2 favorite methods to do the palettes because you will have to go touch these up. I cut the popsicle sticks to size to put on the bottom. So this, you could use a solid piece of wood here if you wanted to. I'm just using the popsicle sticks. And we're going to use more hot glue and wood glue to attach these pieces. And then we're going to staple them on down because these suckers were wobbly. I was like, these popsicle sticks are not made of the best quality. I have a problem with how wiggly they are. So staples it is. And next, I'm attaching our little snowmen, these are from Dollar Tree, as our feet. We're going to put some wood glue on here and then we're going to attach it. This is the moment that I realized I cut the popsicle sticks wrong. So I just kind of, you know, I came back in with the shears and trimmed it up. You know, sometimes your measurements are off. It happens, okay? Off camera, I then attached these with some wood glue and I let this dry for about 30 minutes. You let it dry for an hour or more. I had to hurry this up because I'm filming for you. You know what I mean? I'm trying to get this done. And then I took some white paint and went over everything so it all matched. And here is the first idea. Nice, simple, and really goes with anything. You could put a little glass vase in here, or you could just put florals in here with some fairy lights like I did. And if you want to kick it up a notch, take some of Dollar Tree's metal lace and wrap it around here and attach it. This will give it another look, or you can take some ribbon. Your color choice is completely up to you, and make sure your florals match with it. It just gives it a whole nother look. I love all these ideas, but people, I couldn't stop you. Oh no, we're gonna bust out the clay and my favorite mold. This is my favorite clay, and the reason is it's super easy to work with. I struggle with grip issues and I don't have to do a lot of pushing and prying. I do have clay tools that I use as well to help me get in the little cracks, and you can just kind of press them down to make sure that your clay is nice and flat. And people, I am so sorry. I do forget to mention all the time that I have an Amazon store. The link is down in the description box. I also have a website. The link is down in the description box. A lot of the things you see me use or even create are on my website. You can pick them up from there or in the Amazon store. I'm always asked these questions and I forget to plug that stuff very often because I'm just so busy trying to bring y'all content you enjoy. Please forgive me. I do not mean to forget any of that. And here, all I'm doing is taking some tacky glue and attaching this burlap strip that I frayed and putting on our little clay mold right to the front with some wood glue. I let this dry overnight and then came back in and painted it white. And then took some of Dixie Belle's gilding wax. If you do not have this, some silver glittery paint would work fine as well. Just make sure you have dried it off on your finger and apply it. It really makes everything just kind of pop. People, as always, thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. You know, I appreciate you so very much. I hope you guys enjoyed these palette DIYs. Let me know in the description box if you want to see more. And until next time, these are literally the perfect size to create hangers out of for keys, coats, anything. Just toss some stuff on these. I put a little hanger on the top of it. And then I had some options going on around here. Wasn't real sure which one. And I'm like, I got ideas for both. So I decided to show you what both of them would look like. Definitely make sure if you're going to recreate these at home, you're using E6000 or Gorilla Glue gel and allowing them to sit to dry. Or better yet, take a drill bit and drill a hole through so this way you can attach them through the piece and ensure that hold. I even added a couple little things to hang off of here just to show you how decorative these are, and I love them so much. People, y'all gonna laugh at me for this one, but I just thought this house was so flippin' cute when I seen it. I was like, and it has a kickstand. It's like, oh, it's so cute. I have the cutest and easiest DIY for this, and it's super high-end looking. You could take any two stencils that you want, and you could do a raised stencil on this as well if you want, or they have the Cottagecore. Whatever works for you, the idea still stands. Take one that has a word saying and do it up the side of the house, and you're just stenciling that in, and then you're going to take some type of decorative design. This I kind of used an ornate tribal looking piece that was in the shape of a circle, and I stenciled this in. I really think it would look absolutely amazing using a raised stencil on the piece that we're doing a shape. And for this, I decided to kind of fade out the stencil. I made it really dark around the edges, and then it kind of tapered off as we got towards the center. And that is it for this. My first super simple, easy DIY of 2023. These don't come easy to me, people, so drink it on in. What do you guys think of it? For this DIY, I am always telling my kids that only they are responsible for their happiness, and that starts with them. So I really wanted to model this. So I used some joint compound to create a texture on this little tiny pot I picked up from Michael's, and I just mixed some chalk paint in a brown with that and smushed it all around to create a texture with the glove. You could take a paintbrush as well to give it a little bit more if you want. I would be happy to do an entire video with texture techniques with the joint compound. If you're interested, just comment below. For this part, I wanted to show you guys exactly how amazing these little clippers are, so I just filmed me snipping them off for you. I usually struggle with the popsicle sticks, cutting them with things. They'll kind of get brittle and snap, but these are beautiful. This works so great. Using a Cricut. If you don't have a Cricut, you can get stickers or you can do stencils. They will all work. I should have done it because this was a nightmare. You guys, people, let me explain something to you. Me and this Cricut have a love-hate relationship, and I was about ready to rip my hair out today. I don't know if it was lettering. It definitely was not the painter's tape. It came off. The weeding was fine. This is where I went wrong. If you're going to do this, and if you're going to put any, going forward, take my advice, if you're going to put any type of stencil or even stickers like this with lettering on anything painted, put a layer of Mod Podge on it. Do you see how it's not sticking? Do you see all that paint on the back there? It's coming off with the transfer. I should have put a layer of Mod Podge on it. So I couldn't do nothing about it. I was already in it. It took me an hour to put that little thing on there. I'm done being bitter. Done being salty about it. On to the pots. I then just dry brushed a little bit of black on there, and we're going to use some black floral wire so it all blends in, and I'm just pressing it around the pots. Next, I'm just twisting it in the back so it kind of moves in and out, so that way if I want to change the floral or whatever's in this pot I can. And then I'm going to just shove it through the center gap in this little palette, and then I'm going to press one up and one down, and I'm going to glue it in place with the Gorilla Glue and the hot glue, and want to let that dry for like 5 minutes before you start doing anything else. For my little hanger, I'm just braiding some jute twine. I'm taking it back to the old school, the 90s, when you used to just sit on your stoop and braid some bracelets. We used to make them all the time. I love doing that stuff. And then I, of course, put this on the back using Gorilla Glue, and I'm having a really bad time with this one. Cut down these 1x3s, and I did take a second to show you the measurements real quick in case you want to recreate this for yourself. You could use a miter box to do this. No heavy tools are required. You will need 3 pallets as well, and then attach the pallets with wood glue and hot glue to accomplish those bonds for your little piece of wood that you're going to put on the sides here. Now, if you don't want to use this and you just want to hot glue it, more power to you, but I will take no responsibility if it falls apart on you, okay, because you were warned. See how the bottom of the wood block comes down to the bottom? There's a little bit of space at the top. If you want to cut your block the opposite way, like make it a little bit longer and then just kind of flip it, that would work too. I like the look of the wood this way, so that's why I did it this way. And that tiny little gap at the top there, like, no one's gonna care. This thing is so cute, and you could just really put it anywhere. Just absolutely loved how this turned out. I did make sure to put all the glue on first before attaching the last piece on both sides, and you're gonna want to hold it for a second to let that hot glue set in, because once you go to attach this to the bottom piece, which is that palette we have over here, you're going to use mostly wood glue, so that way you know that if you drop this thing or whatever, it's gonna hold. So making sure the top piece is well held together before you put this on here, because you're only putting little bits of wood or hot glue in the corners just to, you know, grab it initially. And here's me showing you like how I missed with the wood glue. Wasn't a big deal. I just took a paintbrush and kind of smooshed the wood glue in up against the pallets, and then I let this dry overnight. For this part, you're going to need some joint compound and whatever color paint you want. I'm using black, and we're going to just mix the two together, and that's it. We're just going to create a colored raised stencil on this natural wood. And I wanted to do this because, believe it or not, when I have done raised stencils in the past and then I paint over them, I have people, even my best friend is one of them, who are like, I really like the stencil before you painted over it. So for all of yous who have commented, and Randy, if you're watching, this DIY is for you. And the best part about this is you can create the raised stencil in any color you want. I just used black. I wanted to keep this really neutral. I was gonna go gray, but I'm like, nah, let's live a little. And it's so amazing. This might actually be one of my favorite raised stencil looks. Let me know what you think. This Dollar Tree wall shelf. I got several of these recently in one of my Browse with Brandi videos that I do. I do DIY related browsing, in case you didn't know, throughout the week when I'm not doing DIY Fridays. Yes, I'm plugging myself. So I was actually pretty excited to open these on camera with you until this. Like, what is this, Dollar Tree? What is going on? Man, come on. This is a hot mess. Come on. I ain't even about to... We're going to use the one that doesn't have that, I don't know, man. All them crusty bits. Like, crusty bits everywhere. It's unacceptable. I have to clean up first. So here was another thing I'm pondering in the process. I'm, like, going through. I'm like, okay, here's some rope, right? There's 2 ropes in the package. All right, 2 ropes. I guess that makes sense if we're gonna cut the ropes in half, so 1 full rope for each 1 square shelf, and I realized it wasn't enough, so I had this cord, thank goodness. And because I didn't want to use regular beads, I'm like, let's take apart this brain teaser. I have been waiting to get a hold of this, and this is where y'all lost me for a good 10 minutes. I don't know what I ended up doing, but I could not figure out how to get it back into the square that it was. Suddenly, this little teaser thing became the priority and not the video. So I had to knock that off. And then I cut this apart and the beads went flying on the floor, across the desk. You know how that goes. But then I discovered this little morsel. I mean, I'm holding on to this, people. You're gonna see this. How cool is this little square bead on this little bungee cord? I don't know what I'm gonna use it for, but you know, we're just gonna keep it just in case. And this is where I started, you know, my brain really started going here, so I had to share this with you. Let's take a look at this. There's 2 of the little ring things, right? Two. And if you look at this, it shows 4 ropes. It shows 4, but only 2 ropes came in this pack and 2 shelves. And if you're picking up what I'm putting down, I feel like I'm missing a rope, people. Because if I cut the ropes that they gave me in half to give me the 4 strings that I need, I don't think I have enough strength. But, you know, let me know in the comments below. How do you feel about that? But on to our project. So I wanted to take a bead and put at the top of our little ring. And this hole was not big enough to fit 4 pieces of string. I also want to point out that some of these square beads curve. The holes are sideways. So I'm taking one of the straight holes, and to make the hole bigger, I'm going to use a drill bit to make the hole bigger inside the bead that has the straight hole. And little did I know, the drill bit was way too big and I almost lost a finger. Viewer beware, do not try this at home. I'm not responsible for your loss of fingers if you decide to do what I'm doing in the video. The proper way to go about this is to take a drill bit exactly the same size of the hole and then work up to the larger drill bit. So that's what I had to do. I did this in stages to get the hole bigger. It was a process. It was a pain in my butt, and I wish I didn't have to do it, but I wanted that little bead at the top where my ring was. And since I didn't want to glue all my little pieces together, which really ended up not mattering at the end of the day because I cut this piece off, I used the tape, and that sucked trying to pull this out of here. But eventually I got the result I wanted, and we had the little bead up at the bottom where our ring is. Now look how cute it is. It was worth the struggle. I loved it. Now for this part, I did use the hot glue to smooth out our rope to be able to put in our little beads. And I did 2 of the dark beads and 1 of the light beads, and I made sure that the holes were crooked so this way the rope was kind of wonky. Now this, ain't nobody getting no rope through this whole Dollar Tree. I don't know who you got cutting your holes, but I had to stretch this hole out, and then I had to sand it down. There were bits hanging all over it. You ain't getting no rope through there without doing all this, people. So prepare yourself. I'm just letting you know. Prepare yourself to be able to clean up them holes, to be able to shove the rope through it. And then on a little side note, make sure that you have your rope all straightened out beforehand, or you're going to have to do what I did and take the rope back out the holes and then organize your rope pieces. So this way they're not all tangled all over each other. And that's a whole nother issue and a headache in itself. When you get your rope on the bottom, you're then going to tie a nice knot. Make sure it's centered so you don't have to go back and fix that. I also had to do that because mine was so crooked. Then just start like pulling your rope pieces apart a little bit. Steal your dog's brush and then just brush it out so it's all nice and straight, and we're going to be done with this one. This is a little square piece I purchased from Hobby Lobby. You can also pick them up at Home Depot. They are very inexpensive. I only made this 5 tumbling blocks high because I knew I was limited on tumbling blocks. And okay, this thing was a little bit rough to cut with these miter shears. And of course, when I finally got it down, it went flying across the room and I had to, you know, go find it. To start off, I was really sketchy about building this piece because I had to keep going in a circle the whole way, and I was nervous that the pieces were going to start popping off, especially because I wasn't waiting for it to dry, but they didn't. This was actually one of the easiest pieces for me to do in the video. It maybe took me 20 minutes to put this together. I do want to reiterate though, as you're putting it together, you want to make sure that you're using hot glue to get that immediate bond in spots. And you could probably use tumbling blocks on the edges. I think that, you know, how Pinterest the dupe was where it had the little square dowels at the end. I really just like the look of that. And I almost feel like I've seen this before. I am sure another creator has made something similar, which is probably why when I seen this on Pinterest, I was like, oh, that looks nice. It's just something familiar you see, you know. Feel free to write in the comments if you have seen another creator and what the channel is to help other people, you know, that love these crafts be able to find them. But this is relatively how easy it was. I just continued going on, you know, turning, gluing the 5 tumbling blocks, putting a stick, gluing the 5 tumbling blocks, putting a stick. I spray painted it, shoved a vase in it, and that's going to be it for this one.